Today, the Supreme Court takes up one of the most controversial issues of our time. It has long-reaching tentacles, though. This is about, can biological males play in female sports? This is a really big deal. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. One of the reasons why it's a big deal is because, do you have a right to your own vocabulary? That is, do you have a right to look at a biological male and say that is not a female? That really is what the whole case is about. And if the courts, if your law, and if the country is allowed to force a new definition on you, of forcing you to say that a biological male has a constitutional right to compete in female sports, then you no longer have a First Amendment right to your own creed. That's my theory on it. Welcome to Doug in Exile. Let's read the article over here on the Hill. Supreme Court takes up transgender school athlete bans. So like I said, this is more than just about sports or males and females. I believe this is a First Amendment issue, and this in the end will not stand. The 6-3 conservative to liberal side of the court, I believe, is going to stay united. I don't see how they pick off Ketanji Brown Jackson or Sotomayor. They might pick off Kagan because she every once in a while will get something right. Here we go. The Supreme Court agreed Thursday, that's today, to decide whether the state can ban transgender athletes from competing on girls' and women's school sports teams. Now remember, this never happens the other way because biological males have a huge advantage competing on female sports teams. You will not see and there's a natural difference between, obviously, biological men and women. You will not see anywhere female trans athletes that are transing into males, that is, they identify as males, but they're biological females playing in biological men's sports. They would be killed. And they would only underperform. So they're not going to medal, they're not going to get trophies. So instead, what you see are people that get like the 400th place in swimming or tennis, a male, and then suddenly he goes into a female sport and he gets the #1 top record and sets records in female sports. That is I'm not saying that's even a scam. I'm just saying that is what's going on. That's why this has become an issue. The justices said they would hear appeals from Republican leaders in Idaho and West Virginia defending their state bans. A decision is expected by next summer. This is going to take a year, guys. The move sets up another major dispute over transgender rights before the conservative majority court that recently upheld Tennessee's ban. That's my state. Another reason why I'm covering this. This actually affects our own schools here, on gender-affirming care for minors. And gender-affirming care, you got to put that in quotes because who knows what you call it. Some call it mutilation. In the wake of that decision, the justices Monday sent back to lower courts disputes involving Idaho's Medicaid prohibition on transition-related surgeries, North Carolina's similar ban in its state-sponsored health plan, and Oklahoma's refusal to change the listed sex on transgender people's birth certificates. So now you can see that they're pushing back on what shall we call them? Does the word sex, does the word male and female still have meaning? So there's been a huge cultural push to change the definition of a male to include biological females. Or there's been a huge push to change the identity of the word female to also include biological male. You can see how this can really goof up passports where you check a box for either male, female, or other or whatever, and do passports and driver's licenses. Are they talking about how the person identifies themselves, like a guy who identifies as a woman? Or is it telling you something about them biologically, which is useful for crime data, finding, doing DNA searches and things? What if you're a biological male and then you identify as a female? So the word female is on all of your legal documents, and there's a crime scene where they have to check the blood for a potential suspect is. It would literally goof up the record. So it makes that the writing of someone's male or female on their license or passport or birth certificate, it makes it completely useless because suddenly it can literally mean anything, biological male or female. Here's more. But the Supreme Court held on to the transgender athlete cases that had piled up on their docket, weighing requests from Idaho and West Virginia's public attorneys general to get involved. Now, it's a great day as female athletes in West Virginia will have their voices heard. West Virginia Attorney General J.B. McCuskey, Republican, said Thursday. And again, this is a Republican versus Democrat issue. We looked at the Democrat platform yesterday over on Project 2029, and this is one of the issues they're still pushing, which helped them lose last year, which is that they believe in the trans ability to make you call a biological woman a male and a biological female. And this had to do with like putting tampons in the men's bathroom, which Tim Walz was for also. So this is about, I'm trying to give you guys kind of the big cultural branding issue that we're dealing with here. Quote, we are confident the Supreme Court will uphold the Save Women's Sports Act that was by Trump because it complies with the U.S. Constitution and complies with Title IX. I'm going to get into that a little bit too. And most importantly, it protects women and girls by ensuring the playing field is safe and fair, he added. I'll only say on this Title IX issue that the Supreme Court has already gone back into the 1960s. I believe this is on them endorsing or allowing gay marriage. Gorsuch came out on the wrong side of this issue and said that he believed that Civil Rights Act didn't just, when it said that you can't discriminate based on one's age, race, or sex, that he said that included as sex homosexuals and possibly transgender. So that is where this argument is taking place. And I just want to say, I think Gorsuch really screwed up on that one. And they might reverse all of it too, given how far the trans issue has penetrated culture. The justice's decision next term stands to impact a wave of laws restricting transgender athletes to participate in 27 states. So the states are already taking this up. They have their opinion. Most of them are saying that biological males cannot compete with biological females. In 2020, Idaho became the first state in the nation to ban trans students from competing on teams that match their gender identity. In February, President Trump signed an executive order opposing transgender women and girls participation in female sports. Quote, female athletes are losing medals, podium spots, public recognition, scholarships, and opportunities to compete due to males who insist on participating in women's sports. Now, this is where I would argue that feminists believe in the transgender issue and they end up harming females in this way. They're keeping females from getting medals. And that's why I've said feminism is not about protecting women or helping women. In this case, the feminism advanced, protected, and helped male athletes, biological male athletes that already had an advantage because they were men. And then they're allowed to medal in these things and they take away opportunities for women, which is what Title IX in sports was meant to protect, to give women a place where they could compete with each other. Idaho wrote in its petition, quote, so much of what women and girls have achieved for themselves over the course of several decades is being stolen from them, all under the guise of equality. That is well said. The laws have sparked an array of legal challenges that argue they violate the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause and Title IX. The federal law against sex discrimination in schools. Is transgenderism a sex? And this is where the argument from Marjorie Taylor Greene and others on the conservative side, they say there's only two genders. In other words, there's only two sexes. Legally, you can still act as a transgender person. It's not preventing that. It is meaning that you don't have a right to project how you personally choose to act in the world and force everyone else to acknowledge it and agree with you. And that's what I mean by this is a free speech right. Do you have the free speech right to disagree with other people? Even if a teacher, is saying like they believe in all these different sexual categories, they're pushing their agenda on you. And we're going to find out if people have the free speech right anymore. And then I'm just going to add, so I do believe that this is going to fail, that the Supreme Court is going to side with tradition But this is going to be a giant bellwether category. Number one, it almost completely shuts down the LGBTQ, more radical side of that movement of pushing their ideology and forcing others to accept it. That's the number one. Number two, it generally is a free speech issue. And we're going to find out if the court will allow all of us to have our right to creed. And by the way, this does end up actually defending the transgender and the LGBTQ to have a right to their creed and how they personally want to do things. They just can't push it off on you. And then here's a quick one I'm just going to throw in here at no additional charge. This is Benny Johnson saying, breaking, Rep. Andy Ogles of Tennessee has officially sent a letter to the Secretary Doug Burgum calling for President Trump to be added to Mount Rushmore. There it is. They want to consider Trump for Mount Rushmore. Now, you guys can tell me in the chat below. Number one, do you believe Trump should go on Mount Rushmore? And number two, do you agree that the Supreme Court is going to overturn allowing trans people in sports? Let me know what you guys think. I'm Doug in Exile.